So I guess we are going big for the first one. Welcome everybody to Vote. This is episode 1 and today we'll be looking at Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece 2001 A Space Odyssey. The one movie that changed all movies forever, the ultimate trip. And thank you for taking this ultimate trip with me on this little new adventure of mine, this little museum that I have at home, and I hope that you enjoy the episodes coming your way. 2001 A Space Odyssey is my favorite film of all time, and I believe it should be at the top of the greatest films of all time, and it has a deserving place decades after it was first released because it is a film that challenged filmic conventions, and it is a film that unapologetically refuses to explain anything. It can be really perplexing and it can be really frustrating, but in the mystery, in the ambiguity, there is so much beauty. When we navigate the nebulous realms of existential meaning, we find optimism, and we find that the film actually has a simple message, which is that humanity has a higher calling. Hello everybody and welcome to Vote. Welcome to the first episode and of course, welcome to my home, this little museum of mine that I just can't wait to share with everyone. On today's episode, we will be looking at some items from 2001 A Space Odyssey, my favorite film of all time. And we'll be looking at some items from there. And we won't really be talking too much about the film, but more on the items themselves. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, this first item over here is what we call a film mylar. Now, film mylars were popularized somewhere around the late 1980s, going into the 1990s because of the birth of the multiplex or the cineplex. Prior to that, most cinemas had 1 to 2 screens, so you kind of knew where you were going to and which screen your film was going to be screened at. But with the birth of the multiplex, you had multiple films being shown at the same time. So these mylars were kind of promotional material, but at the same time also directional signs where you could find across the multiplex. So where you would typically find them is on top of the box office, where you have the all the different showings, all the different films that are showing, and their mylars are being placed over there. So to give you an overview of what's being shown in its entirety at that point in time within the cinema. And you could find these mylars across the cinema as well, especially directing you towards your relevant screen where your film is going to be shown at. So these are what their purpose was for at that point in time. Nowadays, you don't see mylars that often anymore because they've been replaced by digital signage and digital screens and digital promotional materials. So mylars survive today because they have been salvaged from old cinemas, or some cinemas they actually do keep stock and collectors then go and hunt for them. The point is that mylars are pretty rare, and they are a dying and a fading part of cinema history as well as film art. Now, there is actually an interesting story behind this. In the past, mylars weren't seen as valuable as your traditional film posters. So while film posters were kept and preserved and curated, mylars weren't seen as valuable, and many of them were abandoned and actually thrown away. So across time, the number of mylars that still survived this process got fewer and fewer, and paradoxically enough, that generated that value to mylars because they are just so rare at this point in time. Now, just how rare are they? I would say pretty rare, but rarity doesn't automatically translate into value. So I took a look at some comparisons online for other films and other film mylars, and there was one on Jurassic Park, and it's currently going for about 130 USD. And I looked at some Star Wars ones, and they range from about 75 to about 120. So, and there are other film mylars out there that are much lower in price, about $40 or so. But 2001 A Space Odyssey, a classic film, The Film Mylar would definitely go for higher than that. So it does seem that the value of the Mylar is dependent upon the film. Oh, and by the way, none of these items are for sale at the moment. So this is really just a museum, and it's for appreciation rather than for sale and all. Although, maybe a fun thing for us to do would be, you could tell me what you think the value of this item is. Maybe I'll put in one of those Instagram text box. And so now, lastly, just to talk a bit about the material of the Mylar itself. Now, the Mylar is a special type of material. And if you ask me to explain to you its chemical compound, I think I'll probably screw it up. So I went to do some research, and it is stretched polyester film. And some of its properties is that it is transparent and it is reflective. So if you hold it against the sunlight, you can see that it is rather transparent, and it does have that backlight. So in the theater itself, most of these Mylars were actually placed in lighted boxes where you would shine the light from the back, and you would see them in a very colorful, very dynamic, and very lighted fashion. And so we are done with our first item, the movie Mylar, and we will now move on to the second item from the same film, 2001, A Space Odyssey. This time, it is a more traditional looking poster. Now, this is the 50th anniversary edition of the film. It was released in 2018. And this is what we call an Italian Locandina. Now, as you can probably tell, the dimensions of this poster is pretty unique. It is 30 cm by 69 cm. And this is because of the standards in the Italian printing press and their traditional methods of printing. So it's really cool to see that different nations have different standards of printing based on their histories, based on the equipment that they have. And this really adds that vibrancy to the movie art in the world out there. So this is an anniversary poster, and typically they are released only in limited quantity. For this poster in particular, it is the digital 4K remaster in 70mm, and it was released only to certain cinemas. Now, this Italian Locandina was probably used as a lobby display piece. You can see that it is unfolded, and it resembles the US lobby cards that were probably used as advance posters or advance publicity material for the film. Anniversary posters are pretty special because not all films get anniversary posters, only the classic ones that have attained some sort of status within the world of cinema, and they are honored in this way. So I would say that this piece is pretty special, probably one or two of a kind. When I bought this poster, they gave me white gloves to handle it with, so you can tell how rare that is. But this poster really stands as a milestone of this classic, beloved film, and I'm so glad to have it in my house, and I hope that you get to see it for yourself up front one day. Thank you everybody for joining me on this Odyssey. This is Volt. This is the first episode, the inaugural one. I thank you for joining me, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I will see you on the other side. Shane out.